Hello guys, and welcome back to our channel. In this video, we will cover all the fascinating aspects of Marco Polo's life and his journey from Venice to Asia, which he chronicled in his famous book. So, sit back and grab your preferred beverage as we dive right into the video. Italian trader and explorer Marco Polo, born in 1254 in Venice, went all the way to Asia from Europe between 1271 and 1295, all the while spending 17 years in China. His English travel memoir, The Million, also known as The Travels of Marco Polo, is considered a genre classic. Marco's father, Niccolo, and two of his uncles were traders. They were traveling for business at the time of Marco's birth. They claimed to be traveling to places along the Black Sea, but had been brought to Khanbali, the capital of China during the Mongol era. There, they met with Kublai Khan, the founding emperor's grandson and the most powerful leader of the time. After a 16-year journey, the three men arrived in Venice, where Niccolo discovered that his wife had passed away and that he had a son named Marco, who was 15 years old but whom he had never known. Little did Niccolo know that his son would later grow up to be such a famous explorer. At the age of 17, Marco initially set out on an arduous journey down what is now known as the Silk Road with his father and uncle. This time, they attempted to reach Kublai Khan's palace to deliver the holy oil from Jerusalem and the documents he had asked for. For 3 years, they slowly traveled through deserts, steep mountain passes, and other challenging terrains, encountering people from different cultures and religions. Finally, in the year 1275, they reached Kublai Khan's palace. Once in China, Marco Polo also attended the court of the ruthless Mongol emperor, who sent him on journeys to assist in running the empire. From his stronghold in Dadu, which Kublai Khan constructed near Khanbali, Marco performed various political and administrative tasks for the emperor. Dadu and Khanbali were both located in the current Beijing. The Polo family resided in the emperor's domains for the following 16 or 17 years, which included places like Cathay, now North China, and Manji, which is now South China. They relocated from Chengdu to Dadu, the royal winter residence or modern Beijing. Some copies of The Million also claim that he was in charge of Yangzhou for 3 years between 1282 and 1287, although this seems hardly credible and depends mainly on how one word in the book is interpreted. Nevertheless, the Polos proposed to accompany a Mongol princess who was to be taken to Persia to marry Arghun Khan sometime in about 1292. Marco reported that Kublai initially refused to permit them to go, but eventually agreed. It was mainly because Kublai was approaching 80 and his death and the subsequent change in administration might have been risky for a tiny, isolated group of foreigners that were eager to depart. Naturally, the group had no bad intention either. They just wanted to visit their families and their hometown of Venice. Thus, the Polos were part of a fleet of 14 ships that departed from Zaitun, modern-day Quanzhou, China, in 1292, made a brief stop in Sumatra, and finally arrived in Persia 1.5 years later to learn that Arghun had passed away. The princess then married Arghun's son. The Polos stayed for a while with Arghun's brother before traveling to Venice through Negropont, Constantinople, and Trebizond. They finally returned to Venice in 1295, a year after Kublai's death, which initiated the Mongol Empire's unstoppable decline. When they returned, however, according to their passionate biographers' tales, which may have been rumors, they were dressed in Mongolian attire and hardly remembered their home tongue. Their family had assumed they were long deceased. However, when they produced a tiny fortune in jewels that had been sewn into the hems of their Mongolian clothing, they were greeted with open arms. Unfortunately, Polo was captured by the Genoese, the great enemies of the Venetians, shortly after arriving back in Venice. It was during a war in the Mediterranean that he was detained in Genoa, where he had the good fortune to meet Rusticello or Rusticiano, a prisoner from Pisa who was a reasonably well-known romance author and an expert in valor and its folklores. As these were a loved topic back then, both the men would work together on the Description of the World manuscript in 1298. Since then, it has been known more often as The Travels of Marco Polo, or just The Travels. Marco Polo respectfully depicted Kublai Khan and his castles, along with paper currency, coal, the mail service, eyeglasses, and other technologies that had not yet surfaced in Europe, using notes he had gathered while on his travels. When Genoa and Venice made peace in 1299, Polo was freed and returned to Venice to wed Donata Badoer. Within a short period, the couple welcomed 3 daughters. He worked for the remainder of his days as a businessman. On January 8, 1324, He passed away at nearly 70 and was buried there beneath the Church of San Lorenzo. However, his tomb is no longer there. He greatly inspired later generations of explorers. If the travels of Marco Polo hadn't sparked public interest, Polo could have been forgotten. Only one copy could be distributed at the time because printing was not invented in Europe until roughly 200 years later. However, between 120 and 140 early manuscripts are present which are all unique, hand-printed, fragmented versions of the book. Scholars, monks, and aristocrats were the first readers and the travels was soon translated into Latin, Catalan, German, English, Venetian, and many other languages. The Million, Marco Polo's chronicle of his travels, opened up new worlds to Europeans, and as the West's horizons widened, so did Polo's legacy. During the era of the major European exploration and conquest expeditions in the 15th and 16th centuries, Polo's wealth of new geographic knowledge was extensively utilized. However, Polo's reputation has gone through tremendous ups and downs due to his restraint when discussing personal topics and the disputes surrounding the book. Some writers and scholars consider him a successful bureaucrat at the Mongolian court, a clever young courtier with a prodigious memory and keen observation. At the same time, others saw him as a wanderer willing to believe the rumors from bazaars and ports. Some even assert that Polo never visited China at all, citing his inability to describe the Great Wall of China, the consumption of tea, and the ideographic writing of the Far East as examples. They further claim that Polo is not mentioned in any modern Chinese documents. However, as famously known, the author Polo proved to be a compelling storyteller. This brings us to the end of this video. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing and sharing, so we can keep bringing more content like this. Also, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.